Thinking of building the AIRFIX Bloodhound in 1/76 scale? Well, before you go looking for one at your favoured retailer, be they online or in the real world, why not look at what you get for your money right here on Gary's Stuff. Hi, I'm Gary and welcome to this look at the Bristol Bloodhound missile in 1/76 scale from AIRFIX, a vintage classics release. This kit was sent to me by viewer Rob Harwood, so Bobby, thanks very much mate. If you like the video, you can support the channel for free by giving it a thumbs up on the like button below and by subscribing to the channel. Hit the bell to be notified of all my future content. Links to other ways to support the channel are in the information box below. Before we get into the kit, let's have a brief look at the Bloodhound itself and what other kits have been made of it. The Bristol Bloodhound was a ramjet-powered anti-aircraft missile developed in the late 1950s that saw service into the 1990s. It was originally intended to defend Britain's V bomber bases, home of the country's nuclear deterrent, from any bomber that made it past the interceptor force of English Electric Lightnings. The Bloodhound Mark I entered service in December 1958. It was powered by two Bristol Thor ramjets, one on either side of the mid-fuselage. These were developed with Boeing, who had experience of making ramjets for the Beaumark missile. The Bloodhound also had four Gosling booster rockets to accelerate the missile to speeds where the ramjet could take over. The Mark I Bloodhound was replaced by the Mark II in 1964. This had a longer fuselage with more fuel and more powerful Thor ramjets. This missile could intercept and approach its target at ranges well over 50 kilometers and at altitudes between about 20,000 meters down to just 50 meters off the ground. It was noted for its excellent resistance to electronic jamming. At launch, the boosters were ignited and the protective covers blown off the inlets for the ramjet. By the time the missile was clearing its launch rail, it had accelerated to 400 miles per hour or 640 kilometers per hour. Traveling a further 10 meters, the missile breaks the sound barrier. After about 3 seconds, when the boosters had burnt out and been discarded, the missile was already traveling at well over Mach 2, which is 1500 miles per hour or about 2400 kilometers per hour. As well as serving across the world with the Royal Air Force, the missile serves service in other countries including Australia, Singapore, Switzerland and Sweden. In 1991, it was decided that Soviet bombers no longer posed a credible threat to UK airfields, so the Bloodhound was retired from service, although some Swiss missiles were operational until 1999. The first AIRFIX Bloodhound was released in 1960. As you can see here, it is given as 1/72nd scale. The kit was reboxed by Ruch in Poland and by the AIRFIX Corporation of America. The next release was in 1971 when the kit was given as 00 scale or 1/76th scale. According to the box of the current Vintage Classics release, this was the time of a new mould being created. However, in 2005, the kit is back being marketed as 1/72nd by AIRFIX, before reverting to the 1971 position of being a 1/76th scale in 2008. Frog made a 1/24th scale kit of the Bloodhound in 1961, something that's quite the rarity these days. More recently, in 1/24th scale, was this resin and white metal offering from Kit Form Services, or KFS, from 2020. There was also a 1/32nd scale kit from Flight Path made with resin, with white metal and photo-etched parts. And finally, Matty's Minis has this Bloodhound in 1/144th scale. It's a print-on-demand product made from resin. Okay, so here is the box of the Bristol Bloodhound in apparently 1/76th scale. Product code is A02309V. A02 means it's a Series 2 kit, and the V at the end means it's a Vintage Classics release, which of course is confirmed by the logo here. Being A02 and therefore a Series 2 kit, you can get these with your flying hours, providing, of course, AIRFIX have them in stock. It will cost you, I think, I can't remember if it's 12 or 16 flying hours. So, classic Roycross artwork of the missile being readied in its base. Land Rover and the transport vehicle and some crew members. Of course, it comes with a few crew members, but we'll find out more about that in a minute. On the side here is a little bit about the Bloodhound, tiny bit actually about the Bloodhound. It does say the mould tools were made in 1971. Now, I'm not sure about that. If they were, then they were remade, because originally this was, of course, a 1960 kit. It may be that they redid the molds in 1971. I'm not sure about that. Pack illustration by Roycross, again in 1971. The length of the model will be 180 millimeters when complete. It will be 92 millimeters wide, and there are 96 pieces. I'm assuming this length and width just applies to the missile itself. And as you can see, you get the Land Rover, you get the transport vehicle, you get the launcher, the missile itself, and 3 personnel and a dog. This center person here is an RAF policeman who would normally have a dog. Over here we have the paint callouts for the kit. Very few paints really needed. And here it's a skill level 2 kit, so it's kind of helpful if you have made something before, but if you haven't and you're careful with what you're doing, take your time, you can certainly make this. And it comes with a token for 1 flying hour. Now, if you're a member of the AIRFIX Club, you can collect these tokens for flying hours towards a free kit in the future. If you don't want to collect them, or indeed you're not a member of the AIRFIX Club, please do consider cutting these out, gathering a few together and sending them to models for heroes that will turn them into models that help the rehabilitation of former members of the armed forces and first responders. An excellent charity. A link to that charity, of course, is in the information box below. On the other side, we just have some general warnings in many languages. We have the contact details of Hornby UK and Hornby Italy for the European market. It really says this shouldn't be near any children up to the end of 3 years old, and it's actually designed for children of 8 years or over. And pretty much everything in here, apart from the plastic bag in here, can be recycled. The 2 short ends just have a reprise of the artwork and the product code and the scale, and the fact it's Vintage Classics, it's the same at both ends. Okay, let's have a look what you get inside the box. It's a top opening box, and here we have the instruction sheet, and we have the parts in a polythene bag. This is the one part that's not routinely recyclable, although some supermarkets will collect it for you. So let's have a look at the parts and the instructions in a bit more detail. Right, in this first frame we have the missile body itself, and we have the 4 boosters in halves. There's a piece missing. No, there's not a piece missing, sorry. The fins are moulded onto one half of the rockets, and the other half of the rockets are just the bodies that go in here. That's fine. Also on here are 2 figures. This appears to be an officer, possibly, and this here is an RAF policeman, because he's standing to attention and he's got a pistol and holster and he has his cap on. So that's definitely a snowdrop. This next frame has just a few of the fins of the missile, and this is for the base of the missile to align the 4 rockets. The rest of it is parts of the launch structure. This next frame has parts mainly of the transport trolley, or the bogie that carries the missile around. Here, the rest of the trolley with its wheels is here. There's a frame here which is essentially the Land Rover that will be towing the missile when it's on its transporter. And the final piece of frame here are 3 technicians, unfortunately all in exactly the same pose, and the police dog, Head Dog Max, or whatever he was called, or she was called. The pieces themselves, they're in AIRFIX's modern plastic, the new dark grey-brown plastic that they use for everything now. So it's okay. The mouldings are kind of interesting where things connect and stuff. They don't look too dirty. I mean, some of the parts here need just a bit of a clean out, but that's not the end of the world at all by any standard. The ends here are a bit of flash. It's just like raggedy edges here and there. A bit of flash here as well, I think. But generally speaking, you know, it's usable. There's nothing wrong with it. This rather interesting officer's got quite a severe mould line down the halfway mark. And his hat is a little odd. It's not really all that well moulded or modelled. He's wearing officer's battle dress. But you can see his shirt and his tie, and that's all jolly good. We should be able to make something of it. The face is not too bad. It's a little soft, but yeah. Such as life. Here is our Royal Air Force policeman. The many ex-service personnel will remember as the Snowdrop. RAF Police. RAF Police, incidentally, were responsible for all base security inside the perimeter of the airfield. You can see quite a big mould mark down the side there, so it'll take some cleaning up and some tidying up. The outside of the airfield, out to about 3 nautical miles or so, was the domain of the RAF Regiment, or Air Force Regiment. But inside the airfield perimeter was the domain of the RAF Police. This chap's got still got gaiters, so those would be picked out in nice white colour. Be nice white blancoed gaiters, blancoed belt, white hat, white cap. Has he got a service revolver? I presume he has a service revolver there. Tucked over. We'll see. Yes. So we can put some small badges on his arms to make him. But he's going to be at least a corporal. Every RAF policeman was a corporal or higher. So there we go. We will have to clean that up though. Similarly, but actually the other figures aren't as bad. Interestingly, the dog has actually still got a tail, which is remarkable. These legs are very thin, the tail's very thin. It does only have one ear, which is sad. I might see if I can do something about putting another ear on, or take it off and paint it like it's a sort of like a Labrador type animal with his ears down, rather than a fierce Alsatian with his ears up. But yeah, other than that, these are regular, everyday working fellows, technicians, I guess, in battle dress with berets, black shoes, no gaiters, because these guys are working. So yeah, They're not too bad. It's a pity they're all the same. Really, it's just a pity all three are in the same pose. Doesn't really help the diorama possibilities, does it? Anyway, the Land Rover is all very fine. There's a bit of modelling of like hinges here and a bit of modelling of radiator grille there, and the tyres aren't too bad. There's a ejector pin right in the middle of that texture for the roof, which is a little unfortunate, but we can do something about that. The rest of the vehicle actually is quite nice the way they've done the canvassing on there. It's a simple thing, but you know it'd be nice to put together. Yeah, again the pieces are a little bit of overspill in the molds, a little bit of flash, but nothing too terrible. I do like that a lot of these parts have actually got the part number on the back as well. It's just a bit of a shame about these. In fact, you can see that one as well. These two, where the ejector pins are here, probably pushed or whatever, and they cause slight dents on the front there. But not insurmountable. Not insurmountable. So that's it. Generally speaking, you know, the plastic's okay. Some of these parts are maybe a little bit chunkier than they would be molded today. Maybe these axles and these support parts are a little bit on the heavy side, but they will be okay. I'm sure we can make something of them. The instructions are brief, to be certain. The information on the front here is 2 sentences. I'm sure they could have put something a bit more interesting then, but then of course they'd have had to have paid for the translations to be done. So there we go. As usual, at the bottom here it says surfaces to be painted should be clean. Some of these may have a bit of residue. I don't think that they're supposed to use release sprays on the molds when they're molding for AIRFIX, but who knows? Maybe they might accidentally do it. So always worth just giving it a bit of a wash and then letting air dry. Assembly instructions, general instructions here in many languages. Translation of the icons here, and then the instructions themselves. Essentially, that's the missile, that's the Land Rover, that's the launcher, that's the tow vehicle, and then that's the end of that. So there's not a lot to it. These are essentially like the old exploded diagram types. Nowadays there'd be lots and lots of different instructions going on. I don't know if this is a new thing or not. I'd have to go back to the old instructions to see if this inset about putting the axle through the 2 sides and then into the wheels and not gluing the axle in. I don't know if that's new or not. But you can see the missile itself is just a handful of parts. So none of this should be terribly difficult, to be perfectly honest. There are no decals to worry about either. Paint. They do use matte blue, it's 25 matte blue. That is just not RAF blue to me. It's way too blue. It's not grey enough. So I'm going to have to nose around and see if I can get something a bit more grey, or mix it myself, of course. Matte 30 dark green for most everything else. Black, white and yellow for the actual missile in particular. And then obviously matte flesh for the faces and hands, and they're saying the dog is completely black. You can have fun with the dog, paint it whatever colour you like, obviously. Be a bit more creative about it. They do say that the RAF Land Rover is blue and the transporter and the launcher are green. I have seen images where the Land Rover is also in green, but hey, whatever, we'll paint it RAF blue just because it'll look good. Okay, so that's essentially the instructions. So there it is. If you've enjoyed the video, please let me know by giving it the old imperial thumbs up on the like button below. And to support the channel at no cost to you, make sure you've subscribed. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope to see you again very soon.